Now, the last part of the lesson, we discussed the Roman structure of the society and the gladiators, along with the division of the government. Now, today's part discusses the Roman family. The main part of the Roman society was the Roman family. Uh, the families were large in number and they were common. And if you remember from the previous lessons, we said that the children, the married children, often lived in the same house with their parents and other relatives. This is the same like what happened in ancient Egypt, where the family also was the center of the society, and the married children, especially the elder ones, they were responsible for their parents. Now, the role of each member of the family. The father closely watched over his wife and his children, and the law even allowed the fathers to sell children into slavery or put them into death. The Roman law gave the father much power and much control of his family. By time, the fathers lost some of their powers, and on the other hand, the wives gained some legal rights. Families with fewer children, they started to get less number of children, and the Romans started a new action of divorcing and getting married. So starting from point zero of the formation of the Roman Empire until Rome was a republic, there were some changes. At the beginning, the families were large in number, they were common. Most of the families, the parents and the relatives lived together with the married children. The father had the ultimate power over his family members, including the wife and children. He can sell them into slavery and he can put them into death. As Rome became republic, some of these laws changed. The fathers lost some of their powers. The wives gained more legal rights. Families became fewer in number in terms of children. And the action of divorcing and getting remarried started to happen. Now, in the upper class families or in the elites, the fathers were responsible for the education of their children. While the children were young, the wealthy boys and girls, they learned from private lessons at home. As they grew older, the boys from wealthy family would go to schools where they study reading, writing, rhetoric, and arithmetic. Arithmetic is similar to math, and rhetoric is the action of public speaking, or how to put your words into useful sentences and saying what you want. It's the action of debate and speaking. While the girls continued their study at home. This happened only in the upper class families. Now, in the lower class or the poor Romans, they could not afford to go to schools. Some of them, if they learned, they would learn only enough to read and write. A little of them would try to learn arithmetic or math to help them start small businesses. In general, in Rome, whether it's the upper class or the lower class, at about the age of 15, the Roman boy would celebrate becoming an adult. How is this celebration happening? He would burn his toys as offerings to the household gods. This burning celebration marks his change or his growing up. Then, after he burned the toys, he would put on a white toga. The toga is the white robe that is the Roman traditional clothes. He would put the white toga on. It's a loose-fitting robe. And once he became an adult or acknowledged as an adult, the boy can work at the family's business. He can join the army. he can get a job in the society, and of course, he is allowed to get married. Um, Usually, the Roman men tended to get married later, but the woman usually married earlier around the age of 14. But once the man or woman, the boy or the girl, get married, once they got married, the Roman women or girls were considered as adults. Now, this was the part about the family structure in Rome, the role of the father, the role of the boy, how were wealthy and poor Romans in terms of education and in terms of turning into adults. Do you have any questions concerning this part? Okay. Now, the women in early Rome, as we said, did not have any rights at all. All the rights went to the father or the man. They were not even considered as full citizens. But they had strong influence within the house on their families. Later on, when Rome became a republic, women could advise their husbands in private, but they were not allowed to influence any public opinion. When Rome became an empire, the wives of emperors began taking or exercising more power. Sometimes they can even become in charge of political or important affairs. Now, the freedom of the Roman woman depended on her husband's wealth and position. The more the husband has wealth and power, the more the woman had her freedom or independence. And the more freedom and independence the woman had, she started increasing in the contribution to the society. They started owning land, they started running businesses, and they started selling properties. With this, they can also manage the households while the enslaved people did the work. Because the women gained a lot of freedom, they had enough time to study literature, art, and fashion. And outside the house, they could go to the theater or attend races, fights, and sometimes even the gladiator games. But there was one condition, is that they had to sit in areas that were separate from men. Now, this was only happening with women who had wealthy husbands with high authorities. But women with less money or with husbands who are not that wealthy, they spent their time doing housework or helping their husbands in their shops. They were allowed to leave home. They can go shopping, they can go visiting friends, or they can go worshiping at temples. Very few women worked independently outside their houses. Some of the women in general served as priestess, and they carried out religious rituals in temples. Others, they worked as hairdressers and even doctors. These occupations, they were not for the women with a lot of money and power. This was for the middle class women or women with less money and less freedom. Is it clear so far? So today we discussed the family, the structure of the family throughout the Roman Empire from its start until the time that Rome became an empire, the role of men and the changes that happened, the role of women and the changes that happened according to the wealth, the status, and the position. And finally, we discussed education between boys and girls in both the upper and the lower classes. This is where we're going to stop for today. Do you have any questions concerning this part of